I see a lot of friendly faces, and people that have long been involved with Teatown, which is really inspiring. Um, just want to say we're going to go through some housekeeping stuff. So if you want to just advance, first thing is we're going to be recording this session, and we want to be able to share it in the coming weeks and months. So we're going to share it on our website. We're going to share it in our e-newsletter. We're going to make it available, just recognizing that not everybody was able to make this time. All the participants, except for the presenter, will be muted until we get to the Q&A. We're going to do our best to make this a interesting and fun meeting for the participants. It's certainly been interesting to be a part of this journey, and we're learning a lot. So we hope to share with you how interesting it's been, and share our excitement. And if anybody wants to, so they don't forget a question or comment, you can certainly add it in the chat section, and then we'll unmute people and take questions, and we've allowed ample time to do that. So I know I just added a few more folks. So welcome. I want to just touch first. You can move to the next slide too, Susie. So this is the basic agenda of what we're going to do. We're going to share the objectives and rationale for the campus renovation, sort of what went into it, and a little of the history. We're going to share with you a selection of site plans and renderings. We're going to talk a little bit about process and what to expect, and then we'll open it up for questions. And the reason for why we're doing this is really quite simple. We wanted to do this well in advance of the planning board when we will be going to the town of Yorktown. We're not exactly sure of that date, but it's looking like mid to late July. So we were, resolved that we wanted to do this well in advance of that. And I want to preface up front by saying, in the spirit of Teatown, and that anybody on this call, if they want to go deeper and learn more, Alan or myself would be available for follow-up meetings, because we recognize that we may not be able to cover everything tonight, but we're certainly going to cover the really key stuff. So, bear with me while I talk a little bit about the history of Teatown. I'm looking at the faces and I'm noticing that a lot of people already know this, so please bear with me. But I also want to just acknowledge that there might be people for whom Teatown is really new, and you're just as welcome as the people that have been around it for a lifetime. So Teatown was started in 1963. It was one family's gift of land, with really the stipulation that it be used for public use and enjoyment. And so 61 years of history, and we've evolved through a lot, during those decades. In the early days, Teatown was fairly active in land conservation. The preserve, which started with the gift of less than 200 acres, now comprises over 1,000 acres that's managed by Teatown, and 15 miles of trails. And I wanted to talk about our mission, which is simple but powerful, which is to inspire our community to lifelong environmental stewardship, and to share the activities that we deploy in pursuit of that mission. And it's a lot. I mean, but at the core, which is, I think, really important, it's the same as it was in 1963, which is understanding the power of connecting people to nature, and that any pursuit of making someone a good steward of the environment has to really start with that there's a profound opportunity in connecting people with nature. It doesn't matter whether they have a poetic spirit or a scientific spirit, because the inspiration still originates. And there are some people that believe that, poetry and art is antithetical to science, but I think that's nonsense, frankly. I think throughout Teatown's history, it's really embraced all people. And a lot of the people that helped build Teatown to what it is, I see several of them on this Zoom. And so I would be really amiss if I didn't say that this is an endeavor that spans multiple generations, that involves a lot of really smart and talented and passionate people. And it couldn't exist without people from all types and different walks of life and disciplines. So even on this Zoom tonight, I'm just scanning the group. I see a lot of different types of people, participants. I see neighbors. I see people from TAN. I see volunteers. I see documentary filmmakers. I see camp parents, business people, attorneys, doctors. It's a wide range, and as it should be. And one of the things I like to say that's really one of the reasons why I came to Teatown and what's really powerful is that there's a certain enthusiasm and a glint in people's eye that you see comes over them when they're talking about Teatown. And I think the reason for that is that for many, they feel like the best part of themselves gets expressed through the work at Teatown. And I can't say for each individual personally why that is, but I recognize it when I see it. Maybe it's because a lot of the other activities and endeavors that we're involved in, are fraught with contentiousness and, issues where we maybe don't feel we're able to give the best parts of ourselves. But I can say with confidence that over 61 years that Teatown's been built by a lot of passionate people who gave the best part of themselves through service with their hands, with their minds. And that's why we're here tonight. So the goal of the whole thing was a safer, more accessible, educational, and sustainable Teatown. Um, recognizing all that we've learned when we became a more, educationally minded organization, which really started in the 1970s. We learned a lot of lessons. Um, this is really only the third significant campus renovation in the 63 years, which is saying something. And the last one was over 30 years ago. So with that, I'd like to move to the next slide. We've got a great team. Talk about lifelong learning. This is a team that I've learned a tremendous amount from, and I'm really honored to work with. And you can see they're led by N architects. It's a really stellar team from top to bottom. And I also want to acknowledge two of my colleagues that are on the Zoom that will be participating at various points. One is our managing director, Alan Sorkin, and the other is our director of education, Emily Edmonds Langham, both exceptional people that, great leaders, and honored to work with them. Next slide. So we recognize that, again, it's a once in a generation, probably multi-generation opportunity with, the feeling of responsibility to reinvigorate Teatown's campus for the next 50 years and to try to really passionately embrace our environmental responsibility through sustainable practices in architecture. It's a good time to revisit the mission here, I said, to inspire the community to lifelong stewardship. And I'm looking at you, Jim, because I remember your help in putting that pen to paper. But, the interesting thing is that changes a lot over time. It means a lot. It means something different than it did in 63 or 72 or 83 or 91. But I think that was really important to us to really learn lessons from, where we've come from. And I think it's safe to say that mission, I don't think anyone would disagree, to build environmental stewards has ever had a greater urgency than it has now. And in a big way, we're trying to rise to that challenge, but also keep in mind the things we've learned throughout the years. Teatown exists in a suburban neighborhood. We're not building a tourist destination to attract 500,000 or 1 million people. So we're really following a philosophy of, not expanding volume, but expanding impact. And that comes through building programs that have the potential for exponential impact, meaning that the people come, they're so inspired, and they go out and inspire others. That can be training teachers how to do environmental education so they can then go off and teach many more. It's the ripple in the pond philosophy, if you will. Another really good example is the TESSA program. For those of you who don't know it, it stands for Teatown Environmental Science Academy. And on the surface, if you read the description of the program, you might say, wow, there's only 15 students that go through that program each year. Is that really impactful? Well, we started 11 years ago. This is going to be the 11th summer. So 15 students a year. Many of those students have gone on already to pursue environmental science or policy in college, and some on to environmental careers. And many have won prizes at the Westchester Science and Engineering Fair or at national and even international competitions. So these are people that are going and often cite that these early experiences at Teatown were critical in their development. So there's this, it's very much in mind the sense of lifelong engagement. So I just want to plant that seed as we go through the designs, that lifelong engagement is what we're after. We're after exponential impact, and it's about expanding that impact, not expanding the volume. Next slide. We're just going down a little bit further, but the buildings are old. You know, one of the things when we did our strategic planning effort several years ago, and we interviewed over 100 people in focus group studies with a consultant group that works just strictly with conservation organizations. And they interviewed all kinds of different members of the Teatown community. So there were volunteers, there were staff, there were teachers that we work with in school districts, and you know, so a wide variety of people. And we really take that serious because a place that's got that kind of history, where we really exist for the community and by the community. So we're not going to go off and do something in a vacuum that the community doesn't want. So one of the things that we heard during that study was we want to keep the character and the history and of Teatown, but we also need to evolve it for the future to make it more sustainable, to bring the buildings and facilities up to a place where they align with the ambitiousness of the lesson plans and what our educators teach. Accessibility, quite frankly, is some area where we scored very poorly. So that was something we were committed to improving. Safety, learning over many decades that we need to separate the school and general visitor experiences. They're both equally important, but they have very different needs. Anybody who's been in the nature center at Teatown, when there's 3 school groups in there, you know, with 75 to 100 students, it pretty much makes it impossible for the general visitor to have a meaningful experience. In fact, entire spaces are blocked off so they can't utilize them. And we wanted to correct that. And then lastly, that key idea, which we'll be revisiting more than once, expand impact, not capacity. So next slide, please. Teatown has a history of adaptive reuse of buildings. I mean, in the beginning, it was the reuse of the stables and the carriage house, and that evolved. The first iteration looked different than the next one. The entrance used to be in one place, and then it got moved. And so it's a constant evolution, and it's an evolution to the mission, and that's why we've done it. But we also want to always acknowledge that. And so I'm pleased to share that we listened to the community, and that we're going to be keeping the Nature Center building and the carriage house, you know, addressing the fact that they're aging and fixing them up so that they'll last for many more decades, but really keeping the Tudor facade and architecture that people are very very close to. However, we're going to reimagine the exhibits in the interior. And over the history of Teatown, and we have had a lot of good exhibits, not to say we haven't had good exhibits, but they've evolved in a mostly organic way. There's been a lot of creativity. We've done a lot of great exhibitions where we integrated art from the community, photography from the community, and we will actually continue to do that. But one of the differences is we're going to actually work with a professional exhibit design firm and be very purposeful, so that, you know, we're trying to unlock what we think are some really key elements to driving curiosity and interest in pursuit of our mission. And then last but certainly not least, we wanted indoor-outdoor classrooms for greater educational impact. And Emily, our director of education, will speak a little more length when we get to that section. Next slide, please. So this is a first rendering we're going to show, and we'll probably spend a little bit of time here because for me, this is a big part of the story. And the key proposed site plan features are in the margin, but we're going to walk through and we're going to highlight them so you can see where everything is. So I want to first draw attention to where the Nature Center is. And immediately to the left of the Nature Center, you may see that it's green there. And that's one of the big features of the renovated campus. We're getting rid of the asphalt main parking lot. It will become a beautiful meadows habitat with the expertise of Star Whitehouse and Ann Architects. And that's really the front door. That's the first experience that a visitor has of Teatown. When people arrive, we want them to know who we are, and what our mission is. And I want to quote our architect on his first visit to Teatown, very astute person. In fact, his entire team is, and they said, "Wow, the cars here have the best view." So, yeah, they really challenge us to really rethink the campus, and that was a really important step for us. But those spaces that are being relinquished there for that beautiful green entrance experience are being added to an extended gravel lot right across Spring Valley, which you'll see. We can probably highlight there. There it is. We actually met with those neighbors quite a while ago, and they're completely fine with that, which we were really happy to hear. And then one of the big things that we didn't necessarily expect, which was a problem that the architect solved for us, was, we want these indoor-outdoor classrooms. So where do we put them? And over the years, after strategic planning and during a community needs assessment and before we started a campaign, we had the thought that we might actually attach those to the carriage house or the nature center. Well, the architects studied this for us and they said, you're going to pay as much, if not more money to do that. And you're not going to achieve the sustainability goals you want. And you may likely have a clash of architectural styles. So what they proposed was, quite ingeniously, I think, was they looked at an area that was already level, cleared of trees, which is the gravel staff parking lot that I'm sure many of you know. And right next to that is a maintenance barn where we keep big equipment. And so they said, why don't we build a small education building, nestle it in the woods, and that will be where your classroom space would be. Again, back to the idea, expanding impact, not volume. So I'll just ask to circle where that is, just so everybody is on the same page. I will also draw attention at that time. Again, this is listening to our community. The Sugar Shack remains for a lot of reasons, and not just nostalgia. It's still a vital and vibrant and impactful program after decades, started by Warren Balgulian, the first naturalist and first staff person really at Teatown, and then first executive director. And it's still a really powerful program that helps to really unlock a lot of, to me, the mysteries about what environmental stewardship is all about. And Emily, our director of education, will talk more. So another key feature that I have to draw attention to is the yellow. Everywhere you see yellow on the site plan is now accessible. Will be accessible to strollers, wheelchairs, walkers. And I mentioned early on in the meeting that we scored rather poorly in this when we did our strategic planning years ago. And we said, okay, this cannot stand. We have to improve this. We do have a multi-generational audience after all. And after doing, having several years of doing community hikes where the superintendent of the Ossining schools or Croton schools would bring people, we'd have moms there for the first time, maybe with a little one in tow and a baby in the stroller, only to learn that they couldn't experience the Lakeside Trail because these are rooted woodsy trails. But the idea was, let's create a multi-generational, accessible central campus. And I can honestly say that our architect and landscape architect did more with this than we ever imagined possible. So I want to just draw attention that from the lower lakeside lot, you can see the yellow goes up, and the boathouse will be connected and up into where Wildflower Woods is, around the education building, around the Raptor Loop, which will experience some improvements. They call this the spine, but it really means that anybody with any physical abilities can experience Teatown and can feel the magic of Teatown. And that was a huge part of it. And now I want to draw attention to the Blinn Road entrance to the lower level parking lot. So in order to really facilitate a safe experience for the school kids, so we've added, there's a now off of the Blinn Road parking lot, there's a bus drop-off loop. And this was really important to us for a lot of reasons. One, we listened to our teachers and educators and superintendents that told us time is precious on a field trip. And, to lose 3 or 4 or 5 minutes in a field trip, you're losing a lot of opportunity for impact. So by doing this, they can also drop off right in front of the school. And we'll have a few more slides that offer a much better view of this, but safer, easier, quicker, more impactful for education. I wanted to also draw attention to the fact that the maintenance building that was up there in the gravel lot where the new education building will be is being relocated up near the Croft Science Center, still close enough to the central campus. You can see it's circled in red there, close enough to be useful for important for the operations and maintenance of Teatown, but kind of out of the middle of this central campus. This is truly designed to be a vehicle-free, safe, pedestrian campus. And one more feature that we're really excited about that I want to draw attention to is the nature playscape. So for years, we've been wanting a nature playscape. We've seen other places. Nobody on our side of the Hudson in the lower Hudson Valley has one. Hudson Highlands does on the other side. But we've seen them in other places of the country, and they're really quite wonderful because they don't have conventional playground equipment. They're made of natural materials. They're made of trees that have fallen in a storm, hollowed out, constructed teepees and structures. And they're wonderful as early childhood areas. So with this idea about lifelong engagement, we're thrilled to be adding this, again, accessible, because we think it ensures that there'll be engagement for many generations to come for young people. And we will take questions on this. So we're almost through the slides, but so just bear with us. We're going to move to the last thing I want to draw attention to: rain gardens and plantings. Yeah, Star Whitehouse would kill me if I didn't say that, but it looks a lot greener, and it did in the other, because it actually is. And a couple people have asked already that are friendly with Teatown, are we still going to be able to do Plant Fest in the backyard? Absolutely, we will. And the conditions will be much better, because those who have been involved with decades in the Plant Fest know that after a big rain, that can really turn into a swamp. There's going to be a lot of strategically placed rain gardens and native planting. So that'll be not only a much more beautiful space, it'll be a more functional space, and it'll be a more accessible space. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're on to the Nature Center. And my colleague Alan Sorkin said we could do a game and ask the old-time Teatown people, of which there are many, if they notice anything is different. You can see, again, as I mentioned, Tudor facade is intact, and the architecture is intact, and Architects has done a beautiful job of doing that. We're going to get into the floor plans, but I'll just draw your attention to the only thing that's different here is that new dormer, and that's because the third floor, which many of you know who have long been at Teatown, has been an attic used for storage, and that will become the administrative and staff offices for Teatown. But it's been beautifully integrated into the Tudor design. Next slide, please. So this is a view now from an accessible path, looking back at the Nature Center and Carriage House. I did want to touch briefly, because I know people ask what's being done, if anything, to the Carriage House. Not much. We still actually find the Carriage House to be a very, very useful space for gathering people, for programs, for talks, for meetings. We are going to upgrade the restrooms and the kitchen slightly, and do some, sprucing up, but it's going to largely remain as is, and it's very functional. We may address it down the road still in a number of years, but it was not the biggest priority in those objectives. Next slide, please. So this is the main level of the Nature Center, the home of the visitor experience now, and the home of the visitor experience in the new Teatown as well. Interestingly, the footprint of the experience is very much the same, although a few things have been moved around. I'll draw your attention to the Nature Store, which is the small room we call the Discovery Room now, with the bay window. Circle that. And that frees up a much more open space there. You may notice that it's called the David Swope Welcome Gallery, and that's honoring David, who many of you obviously knew and love. And I'm happy to say that he was, very excited, even knowing that we were going to be pursuing this historic plan. And we're proud to be naming that for him. And we're proud to be naming the whole center for the Swope family, because there are obviously many, many other Swopes before David. So the building will become the Swope Family Visitor Center, and that will be the David Swope Welcome Gallery. From an exhibit standpoint, the Welcome Gallery is really the orientation point. Someone arrives at Teatown, we want them to understand where they are in terms of the geography, where they are in terms of the history. What was Teatown before? Ag farmland, for that old growth forest, understanding the glacial formations that created the area, so that they really have a sense of where to set out from. There will be a topographical map and also an interactive map. We want people to be able to drill down and understand the history, because it's really crucial. And then if you work your way over to what we used to call the Moose Room, which was partially damaged by fire last year, that'll be completely reimagined as our Habitat Gallery. And even though I hadn't planned on it, I think I'd like to ask our Director of Education, Emily Edmonds-Langham, who's been really, really deeply involved with the curation and design of this space, to just say a few words about the Habitat Gallery and Stewardship Gallery.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Hi, everybody. So as Kevin mentioned at the top, the exhibits that Teatown has had for the course of its history have sort of accreted organically. They've developed over time, but as such, we've never really been able to tell the story of the native species that are in our collection, the stewardship of the habitats that those species can be found in on our property. So it's a really excellent opportunity to craft a narrative about how Teatown has been taking care of this preserve for so long, and why that is so important from an ecological standpoint. We have an incredible live collection of non-releasable wildlife, and we'd really love to showcase those animals in state-of-the-art exhibitry, so that we really can be able to drive home the message that we are helping to take care of these animals. It's a wonderful avenue in for learners, especially early learners, to make a connection with Hazel, our chipmunk, or Indy, our blue jay, right? All of these charismatic animals, and then set the stage so that they can go out on the preserve and hike out to Hidden Valley and see who might be hiding in a tree in the pine forest, and make that connection. And then the Stewardship Gallery, again, is where we hope to turnkey that passion for the environment into action, and highlight the choices that you can make at home. How you take care of your own property, what choices you do in terms of window treatment to prevent bird strikes, or what you're treating your lawn with, right? All of these different elements that can be done at a personal scale, as opposed to the institutional choices that we're making as an organization. But we're really delighted to be able to tell this story in a cohesive way.
Next slide, please. So lower and upper levels, they're not part of the public general visitor experience, but people may be curious of what we're doing, so I won't spend quite as much time on these. I'll just say that the lower level, which many of you know and have seen, is the workshop, will now become Animal Care Center. The animal care function operationally was really kind of piecemealed in a lot of other locations, multiple locations, which really made it inefficient. So this was identified as the key place to do this. And then the far left block says nursery here. Many people know it as the Owl's Nest Classroom. There's a beautiful mural that was painted by a community artist there. And we're going to keep that for a program space. We don't intend to run a nursery school, but it's a great space to run early childhood programs, whether they're after school enrichment, whether they're 1 hour, 2 hour, half day, that we're very keen to keep that space. In the upper level, as I mentioned briefly when we looked at the building rendering, formerly attic and now office space. So, yep, we're using that space for our growing team. Next slide, please. So now we get to the new education center nestled in the forest. And, yeah, I still remain as inspired by this as the first time I saw it. And it's quite beautiful. And talk about inspiring. It's very inspiring, and we hope it will inspire people for many years to come. But I want to ask Emily Edmonds Langham again to discuss this because I can't convey enough how important it is to have your educators, your teachers involved in the study, the research, and inputting to this so that it's a marvelously functional building. So, Emily.
Thank you. I think we're, again, just so pleased with what N Architects has brought us, that this building blends right in. It's sort of a secret clubhouse, a tree house tucked away, nestled over a rock outcropping, and really does not clash with that classic Tudor architecture up the hill. And I think the idea of a green roof, again, is a teachable moment. It's an opportunity for us to put our money where our mouth is on the sustainability message, but also showcase something that folks can consider doing on a small scale at home. So while it will be a fantastic space to kick off school programs or hold an evening fundraising cocktail party, we are also really delighted with it from an educational standpoint because it puts us up into the canopy. There's a lot of wonderful teaching opportunities to be had by being able to use our roof and again, to showcase the green features of the building, which we really do intend to be obvious, to be signed, to be spoken about, to be built into curriculum so that anyone who comes to our programs can take away that sustainability message. And the roof is accessible via a ramp. So again, with that idea of increasing ADA accessibility. This is the view from the carriage house. So if you walk right out that breezeway, you can see the hint of this building sort of tucked back there in the woods. And Star White House has wonderful thoughts about how to meld the landscaping. And again, as Kevin mentioned, some rain gardens and all of these things so that it is not, it's not a clear shot. We're preserving that sense of curiosity and discovery, right? Just getting out to the building, you feel like you've stumbled upon something exciting and special. Next slide. So the bus drop off. This is great news. As Kevin mentioned, every minute counts in a school program. If you've ever dealt with a school bus, you know that inevitably they've gotten lost, they've made a wrong turn, they left late, everyone has to go to the bathroom, whatever it is. Having the ability to drop off right outside our education center, I think will be game changing for us to really just get everyone into that educational experience as quickly as possible. And also for safety reasons. As it stands right now, we're dropping off in front of the building. In Spring Valley Road, it can be a little hairy out there. And it certainly makes us nervous as educators. And so removing that element, taking us away from the general public, getting the traffic off of Spring Valley and onto Blinn, and then up into our own drop-off zone is fantastic for many reasons. And we also have this beautiful dusky shot of how it might look if you were coming for a nighttime lecture to the building. Next slide. So this is the main entrance. Again, you can see that ramp leading you off to the left up to the green roof. But as you enter the building, you make your way into multi-purpose space, dedicated classrooms. That is the biggest change for us with having this education center. Not that we don't want to be in the nature center, but we have never had dedicated classrooms before. And that I think will really allow us to up our game and really do science in a way that is more hands-on, takes advantage of all the incredible opportunities that Teatown presents as a living classroom and a living laboratory. And by giving us real spaces in which to do that, you could leave an experiment set up for the day during summer camp. or allow student work to hang out and dry for the week until those after school kids come back next Thursday, right? So it really allows us to deepen the impact, as Kevin has been saying, of our programming by having our own spaces. Here we are up on the roof. I'm a birder. I'm delighted about this. I think it's going to be fantastic to be up at canopy level and to be able to teach lessons up there. But I also think it's going to be attractive. It's going to be a wonderful place to spend a reflective moment in the forest, in that bowl where you're surrounded by all of our sugar maples, because the sugar house is right down the hill from there. And I think it is going to be transformative for the way in which we start our school programs, to situate everyone in this space. We're really looking forward to it. Classrooms, as I mentioned, this is new for us. And it will really change the way in which we're able to teach. And so in this building, there are 3 classrooms. There is a large multi-purpose space that can be adapted for events, for lectures, and there is also an office and storage space that can be used for prep. As of right now, all of our specimens, our school program supplies, our camp materials, all of these things, similar to Kevin's point about animal care, are spread across the nature center, all 3 levels of the building. So being able to consolidate those things down into one beautifully designed, well-organized space will be game-changing for the education team, so that they do not have to run up and down 3 different flights of stairs and pull things out of 14 different closets to be able to get ready for a school program. Great. So the pink room up at the top there, perhaps Alan can highlight for us, that is our behind the scenes storage space where hopefully we can store our taxidermy in a safe and sustainable way so that we can continue to use those wonderful specimens for generations to come. And then 3 classrooms, the orange, that will be modular, flexible, so that we can accommodate any age, including adults, in those rooms. And that center wedge space in this design is set up for a lecture. Would not always have 9 rows of chairs in it, but certainly would be able to be used in that way if we were doing a lecture style program. But one of the most exciting features of this building is the deck. Our goal was to have indoor-outdoor classrooms because yes, it's fantastic to have classrooms so that we can have stations and hands-on activities and things set up, but our priority is to get students outside. We want to get them out into the woods, get them dirty, get them out there. And by having large sliding doors at the outer wall of every classroom, we can do that with ease. And really be able to have fully integrated indoor-outdoor teaching space. Bathrooms are also key for us, so we're really excited that we won't have to put 130 camp kids through the nature center bathrooms at 9 in the morning every summer day, causing a traffic jam. So we're excited about that too. It's the little things, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the roof from the top. But yeah, this has definitely met our expectations as a team of educators, and we're really looking forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, so we're almost done with the slides and almost to our Q&A. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to talk about, because I know people might be curious, like what's next, what's happening. So again, I mentioned we wanted to have the town hall Zoom well before we're in front of the planning board. That process begins. We did not want to submit our official designs to the planning board before we had the this town hall. So we'll be submitting those soon, and we expect to be on the planning board agenda in mid or late July. If things go really swiftly, we could actually break ground in early 2025, but we'll definitely keep you posted as to that. And a very important point that, we've been committed to the beginning from continuing to accommodate the public for hiking and programs, and we've proved ourselves pretty adaptable and flexible. And I will say that the pandemic taught us a lot. A lot of things can be done outside. There will be at some point we'll have to close the nature center for those internal renovations, but we may modify or slightly relocate things, but we're committed to keeping the public and the schools able to participate. And not just this year's summer camp, but next year's summer camp will happen on schedule. Next slide. So what are the key takeaways? For me, it's a renovated nature center, keeping the history, eliminating fossil fuels, making it more sustainable, a new education center that allows us to separate the school group experience in a beautiful new building that juxtaposes against the history and the importance of the past, but also looks to the future. And I think will inspire a lot of people in its sustainability and in its beauty. ADA accessibility was a big goal, as we mentioned. The greening of the main parking lot, taking away the best view from the cars and letting it be for the visitors walking through. Car-free central campus, enhanced visitor and school experience, and expanded impact, not capacity. So last slide. I don't want to read this. I'll just put it up there. But yeah, our team's passionate. These are people that have been working in informal education and mission organizations for most, if not all, their careers. So I want to say we're committed to this. And always there's an intrinsic invitation to anybody who wants to talk more, learn more. Our managing director of Alan, if you could wave to everybody, Alan Sorkin, our managing director, and myself will make ourselves available for anybody who wants to go deeper. And with that, I think we can move to, after 45 minutes or 42 minutes, we can move to the Q&A. So Emily, you're going to help us do this. You might want to, oh, there's a question in the chat from Brian Carroll. Alan, you want to take that?
This question is, any plans to decarbonize the nature center?
Well, absolutely. We're looking to decarbonize. We're going to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels for sure and move on to heat pumps. We explored geothermal, but it wasn't suitable in the immediate area. But we are going to have geothermal at the new nature center, excuse me, the new education center. And so the building overall will become much more efficient. The windows are going to be replaced. We're going to be looking at, the insulation and all the things that hopefully going to make the building much more efficient.
Okay, so Emily said everybody is now able to unmute yourself. So down below in your bottom of your Zoom, you'll see there's a reaction button. If you're not familiar with how to raise your hand, you left click on reaction and then just raise your hand, and Emily will field your questions.
And then we got a question about if summer camp will be using the safer Blinn Road drop-off in the new building. The answer is emphatically yes. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I'll pipe in there because many of you see me directing traffic every day during summer camp, out front in the parking lot for the drop-off. And so that is the major source of jams on Spring Valley Road during the summer. By rerouting the cars and buses to Blinn Road and dropping off at the new education center, we fully anticipate to eliminate those jams. And so we're really looking forward to that.
We can get Alan to hang up his safety vest if possible.
Yeah, it's really improves the flow because now you're getting the school buses off the road. Anybody that's in the main lot seen school buses in there, they park in there and then there's no parking. Yeah, it's tight and they box other cars in. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. It should really improve the traffic flow.
And we have a question about what will happen to the turtle exhibit in the nature center. As of the fire, that turtle tank, that big community table, was decommissioned anyway. It was damaged. And so all of those turtles have found temporary accommodations tucked in other corners across the building. But the goal of that habitat gallery is to give them all upgrades and give them fantastic new tanks that meet all of the requirements for safely and responsibly housing those animals, while also showcasing them and allowing us to tell this story of how we take care of the forests and the fields and the lakes that they all call their home. Terry Cardos has a
Hey,
question.
Terry.
Terry, go ahead.
Will birthday parties be held in the new education center?
Probably. I imagine that's where we'll do them, unless there's a real compelling reason to have the kids in the habitat gallery. But yes, birthday parties will continue to be part of our landscape of offerings for sure. Dennis has a professional interest in this question, but rain gardens and any other stormwater controls be sited or located outside the limits of wetlands.
I'll take that. Absolutely. We've done a significant amount of perk tests throughout the campus. And our engineers are busy at work citing, those rain gardens and basins. So the answer to that is emphatically yes.
So I saw a question in the chat from Linda, which is a really good question. So square footage of buildings, I'll let Alan take that, but I'll start by, has the full budget been raised? The answer to that is no. The full budget has not been raised, although there's some really good news that this is, a huge, by far and away, the largest campaign that Teton's ever had. We've raised $21 million in gifts and pledges. Obviously, with inflation and escalation, things costing more. So we are still raising money. We will not begin the public phase of the campaign until we are truly within striking distance. So yeah, there's more work to do. And also, we're certainly not going to begin the public phase of the campaign until we have the assurance of convergence of the fundraising with the plans and also the town approval. Alan, did you want to take the question about square footage?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to ask Eric, our architect who's on the call, if he has that info or one of his team.
Hi, thanks, Alan. I think it's the education center is around 5,500 square feet, plus the deck and the roofs. And I believe the nature center, gosh, maybe Amanda who's on the call as well will remember better than me, but I think it's 15,000 square feet.
That's right, it's around that.
Oh, I did it.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
And then Megan had a question about, will the windows be updated to bird-friendly windows at both the nature center and the new education?
Yes.
Yes.
Mitzi's question about the shape. Oh yeah, we didn't do that. Shame on me. I didn't draw attention to the fact that an architects designed that building, and I don't know. It was called, the working title was called the Leaf because it's shaped like a leaf, and that's a cool thing. I don't know if anybody caught that, but sorry, Eric.
Jim, you had a question. Go ahead.
I don't know if I can just talk. Do you hear me?
You're live.
Yeah, go ahead.
for
Okay,
it.
good. Okay. Thank you. And anyway, great presentation. And I'm really excited that you have done what feels to me some radical things in greening the parking lot and putting the new educational spaces down the hill, meaning not expanding the carriage house or wherever else they might go. And I just want to say I'm from Detroit, so I love cars. So, and I love that they had the best view, but I think it's great that maybe they don't have the best view going forward. Anyway, I'm very impressed with your plan. Think it sounds great, and so congratulations on pulling it together.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Oh, maintenance building size. I know that up the hill, Alan, comparable to a little bit bigger than the current maintenance barn, right? But not much.
Yeah, but a very simple structure, you know, prefab. It's going on the actual tennis court. So again, the land is already disturbed. Again, it's a one-story building and 6 garage bays in total, but double doors. So maybe, Amanda, you know what the square footage is that adds up to, but
Yeah, it's about 2,000 square feet, 2,200.
And Fabiana has a question about increasing the number of full-time educators to facilitate our increased capacity. Will our organizational budget grow as well to keep up with the changes?
Yeah, I
I'll
mean,
jump in on that. Oh,
go, you take it,
go.
Alan. No, go ahead.
Well, again, I think the key point that Kevin was making during the presentation is that we're expanding impact, not capacity. We currently handle 2 to 4 school buses a day. You've got 3 new standalone classrooms, capacity of 25 students each. So at any one time, we'll be handling roughly 75 students. And by the way, that's what we do today. And so I think so that won't be changing dramatically. But we're very cognizant on the budgetary side of things, you know, that maintaining this new campus is going to increase our operational budget. And we're planning for that accordingly.
All right. Any other questions? I'll just reiterate again that if you know anyone, friends or neighbors that weren't able to make it, please share with them that this has been recorded and they're welcome to take a look. And again, open invitation to talk with Alan or myself as we move forward. We won't be before the planning board till probably mid to late July. And we just wanted to do this as an important first step, but by no means the last step. So you know, we're here for you if you want to know more. And I really am happy to see so many people show up, and it's like there's a history of Teatown here. It's pretty, I want to say it's noteworthy that there are people that lived in the Teatown area and used Teatown every day for decades that no longer live in the neighborhood, but still love us and showed up on this Zoom, more than one. So bless you. Thank you.
Any
Very
other
nice.
questions?
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. Thank you guys. So,
Thank you, Alan.
everybody have a wonderful
in.
evening. And yeah, let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.